From before I can remember, since I've been a newborn, almost everybody in my family has personally adopted an animal versus going out and buying an expensive dog or maybe one that they wanted. I think animals, especially adopted shelter dogs and cats and whatever other animal you have, bring a lot of joy to people's lives. For me, I've personally adopted a dog, a cat, I've had a bird, and I've also had a rabbit. Whether it be from an animal shelter or even just a friend that might not be able to financially take care of an animal anymore, all is just as good. So I personally think there's a lot of reasons for adopting a shelter animal. The main reason is I think it's important to give animals a home who may not necessarily be the first choice out of people's options. So many animals have been tortured or abused or starved to death or stuck in a cage where they're not let out, or chained to a backyard where they never go inside. Or they're maybe even just left on the street to die. So I think giving an animal home, just in general, is an amazing thing, but especially one who hasn't had the best life. For me personally, my animals have always been a safe place for me. Sometimes when you're feeling sad or lonely or just feel like the day's not going well, having an animal is nice to have sometimes. Of the 3 million cats and dogs euthanized each year, approximately 2.4 million of them are treatable and healthy, which means that 2.4 million animals are getting put down every year just based off of the fact that they're not somebody's first choice. Approximately, though, the average is 1.5 million animals that are euthanized each year. I personally think that euthanization is so wrong, but there's only so much room in shelters for people to take care of them, and there's not enough food and water and everything else that people have and need in order to be able to sustain all of their living. So I think it's really important that people realize that these animals need home. I think a lot of times people don't adopt necessarily an animal from a shelter because maybe they have been abused or tortured and not loved necessarily, so it can make it very hard to bring them into a family where they feel comfortable around their children or around other people. I think a lot of times we see people abusing a dog or something and don't necessarily do what's right. I think stepping in and maybe offering to take the dog if they see that they're not financially able to take care of them or they aren't treating the dog necessarily right. Sometimes people really just don't have the needs to get rid of a dog, so they need that person to come and talk to them about it. I think there's been 3 dogs in my family that have been sheltered and they were adopted to them. My brother personally has adopted a dog, my cousin has, and also my aunt and uncle. And every single dog has had their issues and problems, but at the end of the day, they're all loving dogs. I think companionship is another, as I was talking about, my cat is my companion, I guess. He's always been there for me and is always with me. I think a lot of times people steer away from animal shelters because a lot of times the dogs and cats in there are older and maybe not necessarily like the young, energetic animal that they want in their family. But I think it's also important to realize that those dogs and cats and rabbits or whatever need a home too. It's not just the younger puppies and that need a home. So I think a lot of times we spend so much time trying to find a perfect dog, but in reality no dog is perfect. And I think the ones who have been abused and treated completely wrongly almost all of their lives are the ones that deserve a home the most. I personally think that adoption is an amazing option because for so many different reasons. I personally had a pit bull when I was younger that had been abused beyond compare, and he was the most sweetest, loving animal ever. And I understand why some people feel like adopting a shelter dog is dangerous and can be very they can be angry and abusive to their people, but in reality a lot of the times that's not the case. As you can see, the 2.4 million were healthy and treatable, which means that people just didn't want to take the time and effort to even try. And I think that's the issue with a lot of people. For instance, my uncle, his dog, he had his ear broken and he's very scared around people, and they worked for over a year, like a couple years, just to fix him and for him to be okay with people. But now he is the most loving animal you will ever have, and he brings a lot of joy to all of our lives. So I highly recommend adopting an animal because at the end of the day, we all need homes, And it's really important to just remember that not every animal is getting the love and care that they need. And if you want to buy an animal, I think adoption from an animal shelter or even your friends is a great idea.